Jacqui.
Thank you, Kate. On releasing barrels from the strategic reserve, this move does not resolve the structural deficit that we have. In the last 2 times the administration released barrels of oil, it didn't have a measurable impact on gas prices. So what makes this administration believe that this move is going to have an impact this time?
This is, as you heard Brian say, this is a historic and unprecedented release in terms of size. It is going to help meet the mismatch between supply and demand in the market. 1 million barrels a day is a significant addition to the marketplace and is going to, as I say, is going to address some of the mismatch between supply and demand. And I think what Americans should take away from this announcement today is that President Biden is relentlessly focused on doing everything he can to ensure that Putin's price hike does not hit them at the gas pump. So what they've seen from him, I think, since the day he took office is a focus on doing what he can to address kitchen table issues, to address the things that people across the country are worried about, including gas prices. And so today, not only is it historic in scope, but it, as you heard Brian talk about, this has also been, the president has led a global effort to galvanize a response to this because he knows that rising prices at the pump hurt families, and he's doing everything in his power to bring those prices down.
This is going to bring up the supply in the short term, but it's not, a long-term solution. And, one analyst has said that if the market maintains a structural deficit for a long period of time, releasing reserves might actually keep prices higher. So if this does not work in the way that you think it's going to work, will the administration stop releasing 1 million barrels a day?
We will I won't speak to what we might do in the hypothetical depending on where the market goes. What I will say broadly is, of course, we would always adjust our strategy to do what is most effective to bring prices down. What I would say about the long term, to your question about the long term, is, and I think you heard Brian articulate this really well, and of course the president spoke to it very powerfully today too, which is this ultimately shows that dependence on fossil fuels, dependence on foreign oil is not in the sustainable long-term best interest of the United States, and that's why the president has put forward a really aggressive plan to move us to clean energy sources of energy that we can make here in the United States. That's part of, as you heard Brian talk about, the Defense Production Act announcement that he made today to help us make electric vehicle batteries in the United States. The president feels very strongly that we need to make significant strides toward a clean energy economy. It's something he's been very focused on. You'll remember, for those of you who covered the campaign, it's something he ran on. And so he's very focused on ensuring that we're taking those strides, because that is actually the long-term solution here.
On sanctions, the Russian ruble has almost returned to its pre-war levels. So does the administration believe that the sanctions are still working?
Absolutely, yes. And what I would say about the ruble is, what we're seeing here is an artificial propping up of the ruble by the Russian central bank and by the Russian government. There are avenues are closed off to allow the sale of rubles. They are basically taking artificial measures to keep the ruble propped up. I would also say that in the first few days after the conflict began, the ruble was a reliable measure of where the Russian economy is, but it is not any longer, in part because of these artificial steps that are being taken. So if you look at things like dramatic inflation in Russia, you look at private investment pulling out of Russia, if you look at Putin himself saying that the sanctions have imposed unprecedented costs, I think that's a better metric of where the Russian economy is right now. Steve?